Hey guys, how you going? Welcome to Australian Skies, your story. This episode is all going to be about the Pilliga forest. Now, if you haven't heard about the Pilliga, this is sometimes known as the Pilliga scrub to the locals. It's a 5,000 kilometre sort of semi-arid woodland in north central New South Wales, which, for want of a better term, is sort of one of Australia's Bermuda Triangles of all weird and wonderful. There's been reports there, everything ranging from UFOs, Bigfoot or Yowies, big cats, min lights, to just you name it, everything. And I think that there wouldn't be probably a truck driver on the eastern seaboard of Australia that probably hasn't heard of the Pilliga scrub due to the fact that it is notorious. So we have a couple of stories from people who've written in. The first one is from Shireen, and she's writing about a myth called the Pilliga Princess. Anyway, she writes, she was definitely real, the Pilliga Princess. I remember seeing her attempting to hitch rides when I was younger. Sometimes she would just walk along and wouldn't bother seeking a lift. She used to walk the Newell Highway between the Pilliga and Dubbo, regularly catching lifts where possible. And when she was around, my parents picked her up between Dubbo and Gilgandra, and the ride only lasted about 3 minutes before my father pulled the car up and told her she had to get out. Both parents said the smell was so bad they couldn't drive any further. The car was aired out all week. Apparently she used to walk the highway looking for her husband. It was in 1993 she lost her life when she was hit by a truck, and since then many have said they've seen her in the middle of the road at night while driving through the Pilliga. Thanks for sending that in, Shireen. Yes, it would be scary seeing someone in the Pilliga scrub when you're driving through there at night, hitching. I mean, you probably would pull over to help them because no one should be out there walking at night. But you can imagine how that would not fare well, especially, that's why you hear so many truck drivers who freak out and who don't like driving through the Pilliga at night. Next we have Wes, who's written in something about the Pilliga as well. Now he's written through, I've never seen the Princess, but it's a very eerie place in the Pilliga at night by yourself. Lots of strange noises. One night I was asleep and something hit the side of my truck, which was fully loaded. It was enough to wake me up and I got the hell out of there. Like I said before, that, yeah, Wes, you're not alone. We've interviewed actual truckies, several truckies that we know personally who have got very similar stories. And even amongst the truckies, there's a lot of folklore stories about the Pilliga and places where if you want to see this for yourself, you can kind of go and check out. There's truck stops where they recommend not stopping and things like that. There's definitely, like, there's almost a documentary to be made on the stories of truck drivers in the Pilliga. All right, next we have Haid has written in, and again this is about the Pilliga, and he's written in, myself, 3 adults and 2 kids saw a very strange animal one night a few kilometres north of Coonabarabran back in the early 90s. Now just to stop in there, Coonabarabran is pretty much right in the middle of the Pilliga. I thought it was a roo at first, so I slowed down to a crawl. It was sitting until we were right in front of it and had stopped. It got up and walked across the road right in front of us. It had a very large head and paws and a muscular front end, and it looked a bit like a large cat and walked like one, but the arse end was skinny and looked more like a dog. Tan coloured, about 5 to 6 foot long and about 4 foot tall. It was huge. As I drove off stunned, I said, "What the hell was that?" And everybody else said similar, and we were in shock. We all grew up in the bush, and one of our groups spent a lot of time in the Pilliga-Coona area, and none of us had ever seen anything like it before. I contacted National Parks about it, but they weren't interested and gave us the usual story. At first I thought it was a lion or a puma. Still intrigues me to this day. And no, we weren't drunk or stoned. Haha. Thanks, Haid. Yeah, that's a huge story with Australia. These big black cats that have been seen out in the bushland a lot in the Pilliga area. You'll see it all around Australia, like the Blue Mountains. In fact, there was a really interesting documentary that the Discovery Channel had made. I think it's called The Hunt. And I haven't seen it yet, but we might put a trailer up for you to have a look at because that'd be interesting to check out. Have a look at this.
One stage recently, I'd walked down a track in the sand. When I turned around and came back, there were cat prints in my boot marks. He tracked me out. Never saw him.
What I saw that day stirs me up a bit. I glanced to the right, 5 metres away was an animal looking at my family.
One of the great mysteries of the Australian bush is the reported sightings of big cats.
Look at it. There's this wealth of secondary evidence, things like sightings, footprints and so on. You've got to have that definitive evidence to make it legitimate.
I believe we have an extant population of exotic big cat out there, most likely mountain lions and black leopards.
They're very elusive, they're very people savvy, they don't seem to be afraid of people.
These animals are apex predators. They are good at what they do.
They'll take the throat out in one bite, they'll break the neck.
Always try and set multiple cameras in one area, just as a bit of a backup. Bobcat urine, you want basically the breeze to come through, hit that scent.
Wait, there's a knight.
Out there, go, do it again, out there. You can see it's full of these little black furs.
2 puncture marks either side of its neck. There's no mess, just a straight, clean kill as though you've done it yourself and gutted the animal. What on earth else in the Australian bush does this?
I mean, you imagine the kudos that would go with you being on the front line and go, we've got it.
To be so close to it, to see, look into its eyes, to see how big it was, to see how black it was, it shook me up. I was scared.
As far as we know, nobody's been injured. An awful lot of people go missing. I think it's about average of 7 a year in Victorian bushland, and they're never found, ever.
I'd just like to solve this before I die. That's all.
So there you have it. If you are interested in visiting a place that will give you your value for money as far as UFO sightings, big cat sightings, ghosts, Bigfoots, min lights, you name it, the Pilliga Scrub should definitely be on your travel itinerary. But I would recommend that you try and get out of there before nightfall. But anyway, thank you for watching, and we'll see you on the next episode.